Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discourse, episode 19. So close to the 20, so close to the big 2-0, but we're here of episode 19, and I think it's going to be a fun one. We are talking about the state of the DC film universe, extended universe, whatever the hell they're calling it now. I don't think they even know at this point, but this is going to be a passionate conversation, I imagine. I think we have a lot of differing opinions. I'm sure there's some things that we agree upon, but there'll be some things we definitely disagree upon. And I want to start off by saying that because I've been questioned, my love for DC has been questioned over the years because of my opinions on some of these latest films that we've gotten over the past decade. But at the top, I want to say I am a huge DC fan. DC was my introduction to superheroes, Batman animated series or Tim Burton's Batman. If you look at my comic and graphic novel collection, I'm staring at right now on my bookshelf, the majority, I would say 3/4 of my comics are DC related. Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, all those characters. I love them so much. And that's why, of course, I was excited that we were going to be getting a true cinematic DC film universe where all the characters will finally interact with each other. Obviously, when right before it just started in 2013 with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, the MCU was already kicking off. By this point, they already had done the Avengers, a film that none of us thought we would ever live to see. Give me a goddamn break. The movie's never going to happen. It happened. I was like, Jesus Christ. I can't wait to see what the future of Marvel is going to be. But DC. Now, see, they took their time. They finished up Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Okay, that's cool. Totally cool with that. And now they have observed Marvel, and they can start doing the same thing as Marvel and also improving upon the things that maybe Marvel did not get right. And I, like many people, was very excited for Zack Snyder's take on Man of Steel. I liked some of his movies, others I did not, but I was like, you know what? He's going to bring an interesting vision to this character. We hadn't had a good Superman movie in quite some time. Superman Returns, I don't think was the best film, but it's like, yes, let's bring back the glory days of something like Christopher Reeve's Superman, Richard Donner, if you will. And we had the introduction of the DC film universe with, of course, the character that truly started, I think, DC. When we think of DC is Superman. And the movie happened, and it was controversial to say the least. Very mixed reviews, and I had a not particularly very positive opinion on the film, but I was like, it was the first one. And the years since we had gotten, at this point, we have received 10 films so far in the DC film universe, 11 if we count Zack Snyder's Justice League, and one TV show with Peacemaker, although now this seems to be it seems that it's going to expand with the multiverse that they're bringing in the next decade, I would say, in the 2020s. And of course, we've had many canceled projects and many other projects in development. We'll see if they ever see the light of day. But, I would say that the DC film universe has been a mixed bag, to say the least, at least to be positive. For myself, I've been very disappointed in it. I think we had certain people in charge of films and characters that had no business being in charge of, that they just had a fundamental misunderstanding. And I won't place all the blame on Zack Snyder. I think many of the Warner Bros. Executives, they just didn't know what they were doing. Didn't have like a Kevin Feige-esque figure in place. And there's no structure. They were literally shooting at the hip, and they were throwing anything at the wall and see if it would stick. And it's frustrating because there's simply just no excuse for such ineptitude, especially when you have a competing company who had already been doing it for several years, and you could have looked at their structure and you could have improved upon that structure, as I said earlier. Not to say that there hasn't been some positive. I think that, as they've consolidated, I don't know if I would say they have a plan as of right now, but they definitely seem to have a certain aesthetic going forward, somewhat of a structure in trusting creatives who have already proven themselves with various other franchises. And that does instill me with some confidence. But in terms of, the overall DC film universe that we've gotten, I have been disappointed. But I am hoping that they can get their shit together, if you will, as we go into the future, as we go into this next decade of the 2020s. Man, hopefully the last 10 years we can put behind us and we can look forward to the future. But those are my general thoughts and just kind of the DC film universe. And I want to go into more specific detail, but I want everyone to have an opportunity to go ahead and talk about this. We have a lot of people here. I want to go ahead and welcome Deadpool, Chris Ayers, Jacob Graves, Kaz Faye, I'm Xavier, Person Mans, Luke the Boss, and of course Vanny and with Vanispheres. Let's go ahead and start with you, good sir. What are your general thoughts on the DC film extended universe?
A lot of it kind of mirrors what you're saying too, because I grew up, I think, as a kid, much more into DC and Batman the Animated Series. Like, I was a kid when coming home from school, and that being the first thing I would do as soon as I dropped my backpack was turn on, I think, like Fox Kids and watching Batman the Animated Series, and just absolutely loving it. And then as I got more into comic books, which I really didn't get into comic books until I was much older, after grad school, I read Batman like religiously, from pre-New 52 all the way up through that arc and then and beyond, and was just so enamored with the material. And the films themselves that came out along the way for two, I've always had kind of mixed emotions for. Like, might be my hot take. I never cared for the Christopher Reeve Superman films, like, at all. I think Christopher Reeve did a good job, but to me they just seem very dated. So I was like, whatever. It wasn't until the Christopher Nolan Batman films came out where I started paying much more attention to the cinematic universe. And then, yeah, like you mentioned with Superman or Man of Steel coming out, I can appreciate the attempt, I think, almost. And I will say, at least for a lot of the DC films, not all, but some, they do get the casting right. Like, I think Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent was a great idea. Diana Lane as Martha Kent, great. Yeah. Henry Cavill, I still have very kind of mixed emotions. I kind of view him and Ben Affleck in the same sort of vein of, maybe more so Ben Affleck, of really good actors who've just chosen very poor roles for a lot of their careers. Henry Cavill, I just yet to see him where he just absolutely wowed me. Witcher's kind of been like neutral, but outside of that, it's all right, I guess. But yeah, I think the biggest problem is that to me, this is the equivalent. The DCEU is the equivalent of, you wake up in the middle of the night and realize your homework is due tomorrow, and you need to make the Avengers tonight.
Yes.
And you're just scrapping shit together. And yeah, it's just, it feels very sloppy, and it has been such a weird roller coaster of films that I generally really do like. Like, I really enjoyed Shazam. I enjoyed Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, the Fantabulous Emancipation of one Harleen Quinzel. Thought that was great. The new Suicide Squad with James Gunn, I thought was really good. But even at those films, there's, I think maybe with the exception of Harley Quinzel, there's something about it I just didn't quite like. Like Shazam's tone, like villain tone was, I thought, really off base for the rest of the film. Suicide Squad was absolutely a waste of Peter Capaldi. And Harleen Quinzel, like, I think that's still their best one, just for being overall very solid. But yeah, it's just such a weird mix of, all right, like, it's like the future of the films kind of going forward now to me is like when I play football when I was in gym class. Like, if I catch the ball, it's a fucking miracle, and everybody stops and just be like blown away. Like, man, he caught it. What do we do? It's like, first down? It's like, it's weird. Like, it's that to me now is if they make a good DC film at this point. Like,
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, it's just it's the fat kid who finally caught the ball in gym class now. And maybe with The Rock now, with being Black Adam, and they are getting some surprisingly strong talent with like Pierce Brosnan in it as well.
Yeah, and
bringing back Michael Keaton and things like that. It's like, it's giving me some sort of interest, but at this point, it's still like, okay, like, it's still like me catching a football. Like, if it's great, I will be the first one to just applaud. If it's bad, it's like, all right. It's like, I'm just at that level right now. It's like I feel nothing for him now, which is such a shame considering how much I adore Batman.
Yeah.
Batman, Green Lantern, like, it's, oh God, that fucking Ryan Reynolds movie. Like, at least he has the good grace to make fun of his own piece of shit. But yeah, like, they want to make a universe, but they're totally all over the place. They've had some really, really bad directors or bad screenwriters. And like, I think the best thing I can probably say is the casting, for the most part, has been extremely strong. I'm a little hesitant on Ezra Miller as the Flash still, but
same.
But the core, like, Justice League, I think is actually fairly solid overall. Like I said, Henry Cavill for Superman himself, who I think is a very uninteresting character. You get as much as I pains me to say this, you get an uninteresting actor like Henry Cavill. Yeah, he does the job fine. Ben Affleck, to me, just seeing him just so, like, that meme of like when the first reviews started coming out and him at the being interviewed just looking so sad. That's the state of the films. Like you would hope for the best, you got disappointing, and now at this point it's just all right. It like I keep going back to it, but that's my general tone of the film. Is like all right.
No, we're very much on the same page, Vanny. You know, at this point, I'm just taking it on a film per film basis, one film at a time. And it's like, okay, let's see how this is going to be. Even if I'm excited for, even, you know, because I was very excited for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, and you know, I think it's great. I think that movie's
It's
great.
good. It's
I
very,
love
very
the
good.
spinoff of Peacemaker, and it's definitely one of my favorite films of last year. But again, even I'm just like, I just want to wait though. I just you never know. You just never know. Like, sadly, even if they get a very interesting filmmaker, and it's like, oh, it seems like perfectly the natural fit for a property like that. Again, it's DC and it's Warner Brothers, and they have been very miss, and they've had few hits, I would say, with this film universe. But very well put.
Biggest problem right now, though, too, is that they're just changing their mind halfway into their projects too. Like they first want to make this connected universe, which then got completely shot with like Wonder Woman is the best example, where in their lore it would have made all the sense in the world of Wonder Woman just being like just disillusioned with mankind, and then you get Wonder Woman 84, and they had to retcon that, saying like we're just going to focus on individual stories now, and they don't have to connect anymore. But now they're going to try to have their cake and eat it too again, and saying like this new Flash movie is going to reboot their universe. Is like, just be weird. Like there's nothing wrong with the with Marvel being. It's kind of like I think we talked about this before in a previous Discourse, where if Disney is classical music, Warner Brothers, in this case the DCEU, can be jazz. Just be fucking weird and just embrace non-canon and bring back Constantine and bring back the dude from the TV show to play Constantine. No more. I love Keanu Reeves. Everyone loves Keanu. He's breathtaking. Blah blah blah.
No, he sucks in that movie. I'm going to tell you right now. He sucks in that movie.
He's not Constantine. I think, and he wants to do it again, but I will stand by. It's a halfway decent popcorn occult-ish movie, detective film. It's not Constantine though. It's really not. Just because he smokes doesn't make him John Constantine.
No, 100%. Yeah, there's so much to that character, and his self-deprecation and his depression and his hatred of his
alcoholism,
his drug abuse.
Yeah,
you know, and his cockneyness. He needs to be cockney as all hell. I definitely want to go into one of the positive aspects that you brought up, and we can go into this with more detail later on in regards to DC being weird, because I think they have that freedom, whereas because of where they are right now, because of their current state, they can now be weird, whereas with Marvel they cannot. And, you know, that's kind of Marvel.
It's controlled weird. It's very orchestrated, safe weird.
Very much so. Very much so.
Still works, but.
Yeah. No, very, very well put. Very well put. Luke the Boss, your general thoughts on the DC film universe as it is.
Well, I would say that out of the 10 movies that came out?
As of right now, yes.
I would say I like 5 of them. So it's about half. Like half the movies I like, half the movies I think are trash. And it's not, and the movies that I don't like aren't even like a little bit like, oh man, it was kind of good. But I take it back. Suicide Squad comes the closest. But most of them, it's like, yeah, I don't like them. You know, like I don't like Justice League, Joss Whedon's version. I don't like Wonder Woman 84. I don't like Suicide Squad. But like I said, that. It could have been good, but and I definitely don't like. I think the one I don't like the most is Dawn of Justice, only because that one had the most potential. Like, I was like, man, they're finally making this Batman versus Superman movie. Like, I remember seeing that poster in that Will Smith movie and thinking,
I Am Legend. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I Am Legend, being like, oh man, they're definitely gonna do that someday. And then when this happened, I was like, damn, like.
It's one of the worst superhero films of all time. Who would have thought?
Yeah. I was like, how can you fuck up Batman and Superman? Like, that's insane to me. Like, if you had told me, like, when I was a kid, like, hey, yeah, they're gonna make a Batman versus Superman movie, but it sucks, I would have been like, yo, fuck you. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, go, like, leave me alone. But yeah, it happened. I was like, damn. And so, as far as like just the universe as like a whole, I mean, I see like a lot of potential. Because, like, I did like the last one, the Suicide Squad, and they said that they might be making. I think it's still in development. I don't know if it's ever gonna come out, but might be making a Gotham Sirens movie, and that's the one I want to see. That's what I wish they had made instead of Birds of Prey. I would have rather have seen a Gotham Sirens movie with like Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy and possibly Catwoman. I would have rather have seen that movie, you know?
Yeah, sure. And then we could potentially get that. I would do want to talk about the both the canceled projects, which there were many, and the ones that are currently in development or some form of development. But no, thank you. Person Mans, your general thoughts on the DC film universe as it is right now?
Well, I kind of echo a lot of what you say with like the early ones, like up to Joss Whedon's Justice League, which I thoroughly didn't like. The only one up to that point that I liked was Wonder Woman, but and I was disappointed in a lot of it because, like you, I grew up watching like Justice League with my dad, the cartoon, and I remember being so. And I remember when the MCU was starting up, I was so excited for DC to pick up and do their own version, and it's disappointing. But honestly, after the theatrical Justice League, I don't really have much complaints about the movies except Wonder Woman 84. That's the only one that after that point that I don't really care for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does anybody like Wonder Woman 84 out of this chat? I'm curious. Like, genuinely like the film.
Oh, no.
I liked it until I thought about it after I watched it.
I was
Boom.
okay with it until I realized that I left to go to the bathroom during the scene where it's implied that Diana kinda had sex with a guy against her will, and then when someone told me about it later, I was like, okay, never mind, fuck this.
Yeah, I liked it until I thought about it.
That's the best way to describe the DCU. I liked it till I thought about it.
I'm not gonna lie, I do like even though people like yeah, I really hate the look of it. I do like the look of it because it's very polished and it's very 80s. Like, if it was gonna be set in the 80s, I don't think they could have had like the same style from the last movie in that decade. Like they had to polish it up because everything was really polished in the 80s. It was very, it wasn't as gritty as the 70s. It's just, I don't know.
It was very glam.
Yeah, it's very glam. But other than that, yeah, the story, I did not like the story. I didn't like the characters, the way they were behaving. But as far as the look, yeah, it was okay.
They presented Cheetah to you like it's not shit that you've seen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen Comic-Con costumes better than Kristen Wiig's Cheetah.
And Xavier, what are your general thoughts on the DC film universe?
So for me, it's kind of what you all have been saying. It's just very disappointing. Like, I'm not a huge like of the like I guess of the ones that where Zack Snyder was like, quote unquote in control. Like, I'm not really a huge fan of any of them. I think like I like Wonder Woman, but even that one, I'm like, it's kind of like a mixed bag. Like, I don't see myself like rewatching it as much as I like other, like, unfortunately, like the Marvel movies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just very very disappointing. Like, even with like with Zack Snyder's Justice League, like even that, I can say like, yes, it is better than than Joss Whedon's Justice League, but still it still has issues, one being that it's 4 hours long. And
yes,
in all the good parts in it, it just makes it even it just makes me even more frustrated because it's like, man, I really wanted this to work out, because I feel like, for the most part, most people, they grew up being like DC fans, fans of at least Superman and Batman, and then maybe that changed into something else. Me, I grew up with the DCEU, and I was one of those people who was like, Green Lantern's black, and so when I found out that the OG Green Lantern was white, I'm like, oh shit, I didn't know that. So so yeah, I just wanted everything to work out, and unfortunately it didn't. So yeah, so I guess to sum up my feelings about the DCEU in general is just disappointing and frustrated.
Sure. Thank you. Casfey, your general thoughts on the DC film universe?
Well, overall, I would say it's just really disappointing how they've handled the characters that are most associated with DC, which would be Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Because for me, the best films out of the DCEU are stuff like Birds of Prey with Harley Quinn and the new Suicide Squad, which I haven't seen in its entirety yet, but I can tell that it's better than some of the other stuff. Because even Man of Steel, which feels like it came out forever ago, it basically did, but I keep forgetting it's even part of the DCEU, and it was just okay. Even back when I first saw it in theaters, and I got to see it for free, and it was chill. I knew it was a popcorn movie, but by the end of it, it was just like it was a slog to get through. And for an action movie, that shouldn't be happening. And Superman didn't feel like Superman, just like Ben Affleck's Batman doesn't feel like Batman. They're not particularly competent at what they do, like especially in Man of Steel, Zod and Superman just going at it. And that's the thing. Some of these movies, they have these mindless action scenes, but the characters aren't really there. Gal Gadot's acting is really hit or miss for me. So I agree with Vanny about how they should just be weird, because the best stuff they've put out is like the new Suicide Squads of Prey and Peacemaker, and now they're being different from Marvel and Disney, and now they're being edgy, and Peacemaker is definitely not a Disney Plus show, but that's why it works.
I do want to go into more details about the certain eras of these films. It's had, even despite being not even a decade old at this point, which is crazy. It's only been 9 years, barely 9 years. They already within these 10 films, there definitely are just starkly different tones for several films. And then they'd switch it up, or they kind of try to combine things or make it work. Or as we are right here, they're just like, all right, we're just abandoning all of that and just doing our own thing. I do want to talk about like these, I would say these 3 eras of the DC film universe. So, but you're right, Kaz, we make an excellent point how when they first started out, they couldn't even get Superman and Batman right. Those are your 2 biggest characters. Those are icons. You couldn't even get them right. And with Wonder Woman, I agree. Whereas like of that initial beginning era, which I consider that to be like Man of Steel to Justice League, I feel like Wonder Woman is the best. But you're right. Gal Gadot is one of those actors who I'm like, God, you are so inconsistent with your performance. I think, thankfully, others like Chris Pine, they bring out a better performance from her, where she actually has actual chemistry with him, and that's some of the best and strongest moments in that first movie. But you're right; it's crazy. While they have the big 3, and yet those are the foundations that they're standing on are not sound. It's crazy. So excellent points being made. Jacob, your general thoughts on the DC film universe?
So, I honestly think that the whole thing's just messy. Honestly, it's like they wanted to go so fast on, like, they really wanted to catch up on Marvel when they should not have. Like, Man of Steel, even though I'm not really a big fan of it, like, it took me a couple of watches to be like, it's an alright film. But like when they went into like Batman versus Superman, it's like, did we need a Batman versus Superman film instantly? No. We needed a Batman film right after to, establish the world of Gotham. And it's just weird. It's like we had all these films right after Batman versus Superman, and where they tried to establish these characters where that Wonder Woman should have been there before that. I honestly believe that they should have just went slow and not catched up to Marvel, and they should have just not. There was just too many like people putting things into the pot when they should not have.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing. Well, to your point, they wanted that Avengers money. They wanted that quick, and they didn't want to take the time that Marvel took to build towards a team movie. Like we had Iron Man, we had Iron Man 2, we had Incredible Hulk, we had Captain America, we had Thor, and then they did Avengers. Whereas they got to Justice League within so few films. I mean, Suicide Squad, I know it came out before Justice League, but really it was Man of Steel, Bambi, Superman, Wonder Woman, and then Justice League. And I was like, you didn't even bother to establish Aquaman or even the Flash or any of these other characters that are appearing. And it was just sloppily done because they were rushing because they wanted that money quick, and they just felt like whatever, we can do all these origin films afterwards, which is kind of crazy to me. Doesn't make a lot of sense. They could get away with something like that. Like maybe their thinking was, well, Guardians of the Galaxy, that's a team movie. But the thing is, those characters, and to the same degree of Suicide Squad, those characters are they're like D-listers. They're not known by the general public, so you don't have to do like an origin story for Star-Lord or an origin story for Deadshot or Bloodsport or something like that. Just introducing that movie because people are like, who the fuck are these people? And that works. Whereas
they had nothing to do with Justice League afterwards.
True. Very good point. Yeah, it was its own little isolated thing. So no, it's an excellent point that they just so thoroughly rushed the world building aspects of the universe, which is, as we know, is never a smart strategy. Lily, is that you? Hello, greetings, robot. Is that Lily?
I think that's awesome.
It is.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Lily, we're doing a discussion on the DC film universe. I don't know if you want to kind of go into your general thoughts on it right now.
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, no, I've been listening.
Do you want to listen, or do you want to participate in the conversation?
Oh, I like to. It's just, what's the when everyone else said, their spiel. DC universe. In the beginning, my issue with it's more of I don't like Zack Snyder's style in general, so Man of Steel never appealed to me at all. So it was rough to get into from that aspect.
Of course.
And as far as timelines go, I was trying to rushed. It was very rushed. And it's very hard to love Superman when all you know is, okay, he killed someone.
Yeah.
He snapped an egg. He goes insane, and all of a sudden he's a bad guy. And where does it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it was a very sloppy introduction to Superman, to say the least. I feel like Zack Snyder was like, well, in order to make Superman interesting, I need to make him dark and depressing and just indulge in his depression. And I'm just like, that's not the right way to handle Superman, in my opinion.
I know this is a DC discussion, so I'm going to save the Snyder stuff for another time. It's just...
No, I mean, that's
my thing about Snyder, and it's so encapsulate words. I think Man of Steel is a good example of it, where he tries too hard to be edgy.
Yeah,
and it just ruins the movie in general. It's just no, I can't get into it when you're trying way too hard. Tone it down.
I think his aesthetics are they just do not match a character like Superman. They don't add up to that. It's just not possible. He tries to make Superman the way he has made his other movies, his style, sensibilities, and he places that in Superman. I think that's the issue. Like, he's not trying to make a Superman movie. He's trying to make a Zack Snyder film, which is what I've always had a huge issue with him as a filmmaker. Excellent points.
But yeah, as far as the universe goes, I actually love some of the movies such as Shazam. I don't know if you guys mentioned that already, but that one's great. Shazam, the first Wonder Woman, Joker, when they're doing individual, not trying to connect it to anything, they've been pretty great.
I do want to talk about... I'm sorry, keep going.
Oh, sorry. But what I guess my thing is, when they're trying to connect it to something, they're trying way too hard and it's so forced. So yeah, that's about it.
I do want to talk about, like I said, the individual kind of, as I look at them, eras, the beginning, the middle, and the kind of what we are now, the current of the DC film universe, and talking specifically about the movies and certain scenes and things. We can go into details why I think they either work really well or they don't work really well. So, but no, thank you for sharing your opinions on both Snyder and just Superman in general, because that was supposed to be the foundational movie. Chris Ayers, what are your general thoughts on the DC film universe?
My general thoughts are, I started off really excited for it because like I feel like I'm probably like the only one here who liked Man of Steel. Yeah, it's not traditional Superman stuff. It's not a traditional portrayal, but I still thought it was interesting, and I kind of liked what Snyder brought to it. There was a lot of interesting stuff going on with that. I love all the stuff with him and the Kens. Like that was really touching, and it felt the most authentic and emotional moments in the entire movie. And part of that probably stems from the fact that most of Snyder's kids are adopted, so he can get in on that level. And yeah, there's a lot of other stuff I really appreciate. I like that he got rid of the slow-mo for that movie. He went for a more documentary handheld style. And as the start to his own like standalone Superman thing, I was like, okay, this is a pretty good start. Let's see where this goes. And then when they announced that it was like, oh, this is going to be the start of the whole DC universe and all the other heroes are coming in, I was like, what? I don't know if that's really going to work. I kind of wish, honestly, what I wish had been done is that Snyder made his own like Superman trilogy and got that out of his system. And then they started from scratch with the whole like DC universe and started like just like clean slate, you know? I wish they'd done that, but no, they tried to like retrofit it into this Man of Steel universe, and it led to really messy stuff, like all the ways in which they tried to introduce the other heroes in Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad is so awkward and forced. And at that point I was like, shit, like maybe this whole attempt at a universe was for naught. And then afterwards, they did what I was hoping they were going to do after Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad. Like, if someone were to ask me at that time what they could do to fix it, they ended up doing that, which is, at the time, I thought what needed to happen was they need to abandon Snyder as the captain of the ship and give these individual characters to filmmakers who have a strong sense of vision and can execute it, but it also makes sense for that specific character. And maybe don't focus so much on interconnectivity and continuity because that's Marvel's domain. Like, they've got that covered. You've got to be different if you're going to survive. Like, you can't just ape Marvel in order to be successful. You got to be your own thing. And so far, even though I think they've still had like some duds here and there, I've liked a lot of their stuff so far. I liked Wonder Woman, the first one. I liked Aquaman a lot. Shazam is great. I loved the Suicide Squad. And I haven't seen Peacemaker yet, but from what I understand, like that'd be right up my alley. So I think they're in an okay place right now. Like you guys said, I think it's going to be on a film by film basis where it really is going to depend on who's doing what and what their approach is going to be to that. Like there's some stuff that I'm really interested in because of who's involved and the potential for those stories. And then there's others where I look at it and I'm like, I don't know about this.
Yeah, no, very well put. Deadpool, wrapping up, what are your general thoughts on the DC film universe?
Well, I mean, you guys pretty much cover a lot of the points that I would make. It's just, I mean, the first mistake was trusting Zack Snyder.
Yes, agreed.
Because he fundamentally does not understand these characters.
Yes, 100%.
I think it's... Sorry.
Keep going, Deadpool.
No, go ahead. Oh. Well, I mean, like, you know, like he... Like, sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. Oh, like he doesn't fundamentally understand the characters at all.
Mhm.
Like, don't understand Superman. How as core, he's just a guy from Kansas trying to do the right thing, who just happens to have the power of a god.
Mm-hmm.
He completely ignores that and goes for the most simplified, like heavy-handed, like shovel to the face Jesus allegory.
Oh yeah,
and it's just like it's supposed to be subtle. It's not supposed to be in your face. That's why it works as the character.
Mm-hmm.
That's not supposed to be the main focus. He's supposed to be relatable. A god isn't relatable. And then of course Batman. The whole idea behind Batman is it's supposed to be this deeply troubled man who's going after these criminals, but it has mountains of restraint to keep him from killing them. When you remove all that away, he's just kind of a slightly more flashy Punisher, which is kind of boring. So like,
Sure.
so
Yeah,
he
100%.
he doesn't understand the two main like characters of the DC universe, and then of course one of them was just kind of slapped in there because well we need to figure out how to fit her in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the biggest issues is Warner Brothers rushed it. I mean, I know some people were saying that DC should just embrace the weird stuff. I'm like, yeah, but they're still at their core comic book movies. which work when they have the continuity and the team ups, all that stuff. If you keep everything broken up, I mean, you're going to get some good movies here and there, but you're not going to get the big overarching stories that a lot of us kind of enjoyed over the years for the animation and through the comics. Like, yeah, even if they copy Marvel, it's still going to be fundamentally different because the characters in the world is fundamentally different. But like, one good example is like looking at the arc of Superman throughout the DC like first phase. We introduced him in Man of Steel in 2013, and then he dies in Justice League at 2017. Compared to Iron Man, who introduced Iron Man in 2008 and then dies in 2018, 10 years later. Like, we get to see Tony Stark through this whole entire arc to the point where his character dies and has some impact to it. Well, Superman, it's just kind of rushed, and you don't really get to know the character that much before he dies.
Not to interrupt you, but I will say, I remember when they did that and that whole scene, and it's so overly done and the music swelling, and I'm like, I could give a shit less when he gets killed by Doomsday. I was like, I don't fucking care. But keep going.
Yeah, like it has no impact because you're not invested in the character. You have one movie with him where you kind of like you really don't get too invested. I mean, you're kind of invested in Clark Kent, but you're not super invested in Superman because he hasn't had a lot of time to be Superman. And then we're just expected to be invested in Superman in Superman versus Batman. I mean, Batman versus Superman, even though we really don't get that much time with him, and we're supposed to be torn between him and Batman, even though Batman's not really established that well. It's just kind of a mess. And then, I mean, Wonder Woman movie was pretty good, except, you know, the villains weren't that great, and then they kill off the only interesting villain. And, you know, Justice League has its issues. Aquaman is kind of like the age-old problem with superhero movies where they just cram too much into one movie. Then you have Shazam, which it's just uneven. Like you guys mentioned, the tones don't really match all the time. Birds of Prey, it's really enjoyable, but you can definitely tell that they took two scripts and just crammed them together. So it feels uneven in some places, but it works. Wonder Woman 1984, I got bored halfway through the movie, and I remember sitting there watching, saying to myself, I shouldn't be bored right now. This is a superhero movie. Like, there should be stuff going on to keep my attention long enough to. I shouldn't have a moment where I can self-reflect, saying this is boring. And then, I mean, you have the Snyder cut, which, I mean, I get it. Zack Snyder, you get freedom to do whatever you want, but you should at least learn how to edit.
Oh, I know.
Because there's a lot of fat that can get cut from the movie.
He fired his editor for that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think he just took that in book and just threw it out the window. He didn't care. Then you have Suicide Squad, which is just like, when the trailer's better than the actual movie, you know something's wrong.
Yes.
And it's just like it does nothing fits. The characters are all over the place. It's predictable, which is what you don't want in that kind of movie. Like, you know who's going to live and die pretty easily. It's not there's no surprises. Meanwhile, you have the Suicide Squad, James Gunn, which is perfect. Like it knows what it is, and it's not afraid to embrace the weird campiness that Marvel that superhero movies are and superhero characters are, and it's not predictable at all. Like, there's some characters are going to be safe, but there's others that will completely catch you off guard.
And there's actual twists and turns that are unexpected within that movie. It's surprising. It feels original, despite, you know, being a weird reboot sequel or whatever you want to call it. You're right. No, very well put. Yeah. I wanted to. Did you have something else you want to say?
Yeah, I just got one more point.
Please.
Honestly, I think at this point, like them trying to do the soft reboot, I think is a mistake. I think their best bet would be just to cut their losses, because at this point it's a sunken cost fallacy. Just they invest all this stuff in it. I think they're better off just doing a hard reboot and starting over. I mean, they can bring back, you know, the same actors and some directors, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's just such an uneven mess that they're better off just starting over.
I want to ask that question. That's a very good question that you posed right at the end there. Should they do a hard reboot, or should they just keep going as they are? I want to do that at the end of the at the end of all of our conversations as a wrap up. Should they do at this point? Should they keep going, or should they just say fuck it, do a hard reboot and just start over? Because they seem to have an opportunity of stuff like The Batman on the horizon. But I want to say that at the end. But that's a very interesting thing you bring up. Moving on, I kind of wanted to talk about the DCEU, the film universe, in terms of eras, and specifically starting from Man of Steel to, let's say, Justice League. So that incorporates Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, and we can throw in Zack Snyder's Justice League in there, whatever, doesn't matter. But I wanted to kind of cover that era and just kind of going on about what we thought, and some of you already done so, but the things that you thought worked about that era and things that did not. I'll be very concise. In my opinion, I think Wonder Woman is the strongest film within that era. Despite obviously some issues, I really liked that they made it a period piece. I mean, sure, it's aping Captain America: First Avenger, but that's okay. I don't mind that. It's cool seeing a superhero film set in World War I, because you obviously don't get that. Like I'm kind of struggling to think, not that there hasn't been in the past, but it was cool. It's a nice aesthetic change from that. And actually, because that film definitely has that blue-gray aesthetic that is very much part of the Snyderverse, if you will. His general look for his movies, but it matched because it's World War I, one of the worst human conflicts in history. I love the chemistry. That was the first relationship I thought was like really, truly working in the DCEU between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine. Anytime they had a scene together, I thought the movie was at its strongest. And I liked a lot of the action for the most part in the films. The first 2/3, I would say, where she was not as strong as we see her something like in the DCEU, where she's flying around and everything, like literally flying. But here she's definitely super powered. She has super strength. She has super endurance. She has, agility and everything. I liked how she was fighting against the various soldiers and things. And I like this sense of mystery. Okay, what's really going on? What's causing all these wars? Not to say that the film didn't make mistakes. I think the last third act feels like through and through, almost like Zack Snyder pushed Patty Jenkins out of the way and said, I'm filming this movie now. And it was just a CGI clusterfuck, which is so disappointing. And the other mistake I thought they made was killing all the Greek gods. I was like, why would you do that? Because one of the most interesting aspects of Wonder Woman is how her pantheon of villains and Greek gods and goddesses and everything operate in a modern world. So I was like, whoa, that was a huge mistake. But they can retcon that for all I care. So despite Gal Gadot's uneven performance, throughout the entirety of the DCU, I thought this is what she was at her best. And I thought Patty Jenkins and Chris Pine, that they were doing all they could. They're being a good performance in here. I thought it worked for the most part. I really thought it worked. Everything else in this phase, I hate. I'm like, wow, you have it's just brought up by multiple people so far. Fundamentally misunderstanding these characters. Superman, I don't need a depressed, sociopathic killer of a superhero. That's not who Superman is. Not saying that superheroes can't be that way, but not Superman. He needs to be the guy that puts his hand on your shoulder and tells you it's going to be okay. He needs to be the big blue Boy Scout. People think that's boring. To me, that's not. We need someone like that, because you have someone with the powers of a fucking god. You want to make sure that they had that incredible and wonderful and loving upbringing in Kansas, and is always looking out for his fellow man and woman. I love that about it. And Zack Snyder said, fuck that. No, for the Kents, they're like, you know what, Clark, you shouldn't have saved those kids. Fuck those kids on that bus. Do whatever you want to do, be whatever you want to be, but who cares what they say? It's like, no, I don't like that. Like I know it was mentioned earlier, people like the Mon Pa Kent stuff. I didn't, because I felt like they were teaching the opposite lessons of what Clark needs to hear. But, obviously Ben Affleck, which I felt like if they want to do a spin-off movie where it was a standalone Dark Knight Returns film with him, that could have worked. But I don't need a murderous Batman 20 plus years into his career already. I was like, why would you have that be your Batman for your shared universe? And we can already see they're phasing that out. Suicide Squad was a fucking mess, an abomination, horrible Joker. Not that there wasn't some interesting things in there. I like Will Smith as Deadshot. I like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. I don't think they did nearly enough with them. And hell, I liked what's his name as Captain Boomerang. I thought Jai Courtney. I thought he did a good job. He was one of the best things about that film. And of course, Justice League. My thoughts on Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League. Because I don't think either movie, like I don't think I hate either film. Yes, Zack Snyder's Justice League is superior to that first movie. I don't think it needs to be 4.5 fucking hours long. I think that's ridiculous. But it does it does fill in plot holes. It does make better choices for the characters. The characters have more to do. It's like, okay, they're more subject to the plot, and Cyber gets more to do, Flash gets more to do, etc. But the fact that this is the Justice League movie, like this is the best you could do with these characters. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, that is incredibly disappointing. And Batman v Superman to me is one of the worst superhero films ever made. So less said about that, the better. But I just want to open the floor to anyone. Yeah. Really, like, is there a particular moment or scene or film within this era that you feel like you want to say, hey, let's highlight the good or highlight the bad? And I'm open the floor to anyone.
Wonder Woman, the trench scene.
Yeah, it's great.
So incredibly good. And that was the first time where I felt like this is a superhero movie. This felt right. With a close second, I think seeing Superman flying in Man of Steel, like just that moment of like kind of like joy that he has was definitely up there. But seeing Gal Gadot just ripping wholesale ass through the trench and just seeing her just be so strong and confident and capable too was absolutely stunning to see all of that. And then to juxtapose that to the one film back with Batman v Superman, of just the Batman versus Superman fight, of it just being so depressing and stupid, and it leads into like I know somebody here in chat is gonna defend it, but one of the worst parts of the entire DCEU is the Save Martha scene that sparked a million memes because it's just dumb. It's a dumb line, and that's the crux of their relationship and how it shifts. And to me, that is so unbelievably unnecessary. But just between that is like the pro and con. Like that Wonder Woman's trench scene is so amazing, and combine that also with just the Save Martha and the dumb of the whole thing. And what, like I mentioned earlier, like I didn't like Mom Pa. I like the casting. Like I do think like Kevin Costner to me, I think is a solid actor. Diane Lane is a very good actress too. Just they were in a bad movie. They were just in a bad movie doing bad stuff. But like, and I think even to kind of your point with Superman, long term. I don't know if you're gonna bring this up or not, but like the TV shows for the DC part of the DC, like Tyler Heckler's Superman and Superman and Lois, hands the best Superman ever. Outside of the animated films.
I agree. Tyler Hoechlin, he kills it in that. That's the Superman that we need for the movies.
Right.
So,
but yeah, those are my two scenes. Like it's the trench scene and the entire like third act of Batman v Superman just absolutely can just go rot.
Yeah, nice. Any other thoughts on this era of the DCU? Yeah, you think the best scene and the worst scene? Yes, guys.
Oh, sorry.
I remember that.
Casfeg. I said the Casfeg.
I was just going to say that I like how the beginning of Batman v Superman at least addressed all of the damage that was done at the end of Man of Steel, because that was a big thing that ruined that movie for me. Yeah, and I liked that Bruce Wayne was like in there trying to help people and stuff. And as many other reviewers have pointed out from what I've seen, it gave Batman a good reason to not like Superman.
Sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing I find about like the Snyder movies is that he has good starting points that he could build a good story off of. And like Vanny said, he knows how to pick good people for these particular roles. The problem is that just like a lot of times once he gathers it all together, he just doesn't really seem to know what to do with any of it, and it becomes a mess. Like the setup for Batman v Superman. We're addressing the fallout from all the collateral damage in Man of Steel, and Batman is pissed off about it. And then Lex Luthor comes in preaching about how like Superman's dangerous and I'm going to protect you guys from him. It's like, okay, that's a good starting point, but then they do almost nothing with it. Like, and what they do with it doesn't really make any sense. Like, I couldn't tell you how like his plan involving bringing Doomsday. First of all, the science makes no fucking sense. Why would his DNA and Zod's DNA being combined create that fucker?
Makes a Ninja Turtle. You know that? That's how that works. Makes a Ninja Turtle.
Sure, whatever.
It should have had weirder eyes. It didn't have Michael Shannon's eyes at all.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, wait, was this your plan from the beginning, or was this like a backup in case Batman didn't kill Superman? Which, how the fuck did you manage to get that to happen at all? And just trying to piece it all together just creates a headache. And yeah, I feel like Man of Steel and Justice League worked better because their stories were more simplified and straightforward. and it didn't get so bogged down in these like nonsensical conspiracy plots and constant debating back and forth. Like, should I keep saving the people? Like, no, it's pretty simple. Like, you can track it from beginning to end. Like, there's still problems. As much as I like Man of Steel, that does have big problems. But still, like, it's easier to track than Batman v Superman.
Any other thoughts on this error? Scenes you like, scenes you didn't.
Anyone? Oh, sorry.
Well, I remember thinking this is the trench scene that Danny was talking about. I remember when that was happening, thinking you could have done stuff like this the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you just didn't. Like, you could have made good movies this whole time.
So,
I'm not sure if Thunderly wants to get into defending the Martha thing or not.
Yeah, let's get his word on it. Come on, bring it on.
Yeah. I think the Martha thing is totally overblown. I'm not gonna defend it because, like, yeah, you just ended a whole fight because of they have the same mother's name, but like, yeah, it's not the worst thing about the movie, in my opinion. The worst thing is Doomsday. Yeah. Like, I fucking hate Doomsday in that movie.
So you're not defending the scene. You just don't think it's the worst thing.
It's not the worst thing. I honestly think that it was totally overblown, honestly. But, you know, it is what it is. People who have their own opinions about it. I have mine.
Okay. Okay. What's your opinions on it? Well, hold on. Yeah. What's your opinion on it then? What's your opinion on it?
Like, okay, Batman is on his, like, bloodlust on wanting to kill Superman at that very point. But, you know, Superman doesn't know how to explain, oh, my mom has been abducted and I need help. And the only way that he could say that is just saying Martha. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And Batman being, you know, still emo about his parents being dead, of course he's gonna act that way, screaming at him, why Martha, why you said that name? Because he needs his help.
I guess my thing with that, because, you know, there's a lot of, you know, I have a lot of issues with Batman v Superman and that moment in the movie. To me, there's a lot of bad things in that film. I agree with you. That to me is the worst scene in the film, because it's like everything is just like, oh, well, you have a mom? Okay, well, I'll get over my need to kill you and do this whole thing. I've been training for a year and a half to do this one moment. It's like, oh, that's great. It's just, and the other thing too about it, like, who ever refers to their mom by their first name while talking to someone? Like, really, like, is, you know, what I would have, not that it would have made it so much better, but I would have, like, okay, it would have made more sense to me. He said, if he's screaming and, you know, like, I need to save my mom, I felt like that would have been better than saying Martha.
It would have been more effective.
It would have been more effective because it's like, okay, and Batman's like, oh shit, he has a mom. I have a mom. I had a mom. That would have made more sense than the whole Martha thing. Because I think it was Zack Snyder's, like, he had made a discovery that he thought no one else knew ever, where it was like, oh my God, Bruce Wayne's mom is named Martha, and fucking Superman's name's Martha too. No one knows this. It's like a secret.
I did realize this watching this.
You didn't know that. Some people didn't know. You were in on the secret too, Austin. You were in on the secret too. Look at that. He surprised you. I guess that's my thing. But I can totally see your point, literally, like, that might not be the worst thing in the movie.
I gotta agree with Thunder here. Oh, I was gonna say the Martha thing doesn't bug me. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor is
Jesse Eisenberg.
Lex Luthor fucking bugs me in that movie.
Yeah,
he's like the Riddler. He's like the Joker.
Like, I know he's supposed to be based on Max Landis, but now that we learned he's a creep, it makes it 10 times worse. Like, and I think Jesse Eisenberg's a good actor, but he was not. Like, I think even the the 2.5 Men guy as Lex Luthor is better than him any day.
Oh, Jonathan Pryor.
Yeah.
I will, again, my thing with Jesse Eisenberg, because how he played the character was like,
he's a religious fanatic, and it's so weird.
It doesn't make any sense. It's such a weird take on Lex Luthor. I don't know why they've struggled for decades to adapt Lex Luthor to live action. It's like, why is he always goofy? My whole thing is they should have just had him be how he was in The Social Network. I always point to that scene when he's in the fucking boardroom. That's Lex Luthor. I was like, oh, I thought that was Zack Snyder going like, oh, that's why he cast him, because he saw that movie and he's gonna have him play the character like that. I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Like, he's a young upstart, but he's so ruthless and intelligent. I'm like, and then he does not play that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the hair.
You know, the hair. Him after, like, I don't know if this was Batman versus Superman, but there was a scene where he was like, the bells. I'm like,
oh yeah, that's Batman.
Shut up.
Yeah,
I'm
the
like,
ending.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
bell
I'm like,
has
shut
been
up, Lex
told.
Luthor.
What the fuck you saying?
Just
The
shut
bell's
up.
been run. The bell's been run. He says.
Yeah,
He's
like,
ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
terrible scene in my opinion. And
I think
Batman versus Superman in my opinion, but I could admit that movie has some terrible fucking scenes.
What do you want to say, Lily?
So,
apologies, guys. The conversation thing is not natural for me, so I was kind of like, let's not interrupt. But
no, go ahead, talk. I'm giving you opportunity right now.
I have a lot of things to say, but on the topic of Jesse Eisenberg, I think the problem is he's perfect for awkward. If you have someone that's awkward, such as Mark Zuckerberg, A+. If you need Lex Luthor, who I imagine is very confident, he knows who he is, he knows what he's about, don't get Jesse Eisenberg. Charismatic, thank you. That's a perfect way to describe it. If you need someone charismatic, don't get Jesse Eisenberg. He's good at the awkward thing, but anything else, no.
Yeah, I just feel like he could have pulled it off. I felt like because yes, he had that awkwardness, sure, in The Social Network, but we saw that other ruthless, very precise, moments with that character in that movie, and I felt like where he was not even awkward. No, he's like, I'm being an asshole, and I know what I want, and I'm telling you what I think of you, and this whole thing, and I love that. So I thought we were gonna get with Lex. We didn't get that, obviously. So.
Well, and also Lex Luthor, maybe it's up to interpretation, but I kind of imagine him as a leader type where you see someone you know who's ready to lead and again charismatic enough that you think this person could lead me into battle. Again, it's up to interpretation, but I don't see that with Jesse Eisenberg. Up at their eyes, you see the woman working out. That was amazing to see on screen. It just it's one of those things where with this era there are a lot of misses, but I always appreciate that moment.
No,
That's
it's
fair.
I think that's a great point, and it just showed a different side of the DC film universe at that point. I did like that.
And
that
another thank you for the GIF. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It made you want to go Greece, damn it. It's like, oh look, it's so lush and green. I want to go Greece.
Sure.
And another thing that on more practical side of Wonder Woman, I appreciate Patty Jenkins, whoever decided, Gal Gadot has a very specific accent. Maybe the rest of you should have that same accent.
Israeli, apparently. Apparently Amazonians are Israelis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's an Israeli witch.
Any other thoughts on this specific era moments that people liked or disliked?
Well, are we talking about Suicide Squad in this?
The first one, the original, yes. That's part of everything from Man of Steel to the Justice Leagues, I would say.
Okay, well, I did look up the origin story for Harley Quinn in order to, before I watched Birds of Prey, and I will say that, while some of the writing is cringe and the dialogue and stuff, Margot Robbie did really well with it, and it did capture really well the toxicity between Joker and Harley, and it filled me with, this anger on Harley Quinn's part, where, I was rooting for her more in Birds of Prey because of that. So that worked a little.
I'm glad you brought up Harley Quinn and Joker and that relationship, because that's been around since the Batman the Animated Series, 30 years at this point, really. And it's how it's been interpreted by different people within the fan base is interesting to me. Some people are like, I wish I had a relationship like Joker and Harley Quinn. It's like, why? he's a psychopath. He mistreats her. She has Stockholm syndrome. And but
there's
I
an
find
animated episode where Joker pushes Harley out of a window.
Yep. That's famously Mad Love, which I think is the last episode of the animated series, or one of the last ones. It was in that third season when they changed the animation. But the thing that bothered me about Suicide Squad is, yes, we're supposed to know that she had this trauma being in this relationship with Joker, but I felt like they fast tracked it so much. Like, to me, that should be over the process of a film. We see this, like, that could be almost the B plot. Like, you have your Batman movie, but the Joker and Harley Quinn thing, that's almost its B plot on his own in Arkham, where he slowly over time just manipulates her and gets her to be infatuated with him. And I felt like it was done a montage. It's like, I can see the, because, and in all of these films that we've gotten with Harley Quinn, 3 really, which is crazy to think about, the original Suicide Squad in Birds of Prey, and then most recently in the Suicide Squad, she's still dealing with that trauma. And I like that we see that, but I would have liked to have that more thoroughly explored in another movie. But it was cool because we don't often see that in a superhero film. Someone who is so abused because of this other villain and is in love with them and hates them at the same time. I think that's fascinating.
I don't know how much of. Oh, sorry.
I was we got to get to that next Justice League movie real quick. Come on, we don't got time for drama.
Yeah, we gonna say Casfe?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, like, it's possible I might have seen some deleted scenes from that as well, because there was a lot more dialogue in what I saw. But yeah,
there were some stuff that was cut out.
Yeah, and there is a director's cut.
The extended cut doesn't really mean much, in my opinion.
But keep going, Casfe. Sorry,
I'm saying that the VAT scene was very effective, and I think Birds of Prey also does callbacks to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Did anyone else want to talk about the Harley Quinn scene? I don't want anyone talking over each other. That's why I was just kind of like pointing at one individual.
Right. I was just gonna say, if one of the scenes you watched was the two of them like getting into a debate in the middle of the street, and like Harley was pointing a gun at Joker's head, then yeah, that's a delete, or maybe not a deleted scene. I think that's from the extended cut.
Right. That's I'm familiar with that one.
I was just gonna say that I wanted to. I think earlier in the discussion I was like making it seem like I hated Wonder Woman, and I don't hate Wonder Woman. I think it is the best of that era of movies, and I think the reason I like it so much is that it, going back to what everyone was saying, how the heroes aren't relatable. I think Wonder Woman makes her relatable. It makes me want to learn more about her and follow her journey. And I agree with everyone where the trench scene is really fun. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Like I'm really like invested into this. But also I wanted to give a shout out also to, I think one of the best pieces of that era is Lawrence Fishburne as who's it? Perry White. Yes, I think I'm kind of watching Batman v Superman now, and I'm just like, he is the best actor, or he's the best character in this movie. Like the way it seems like he actually has like some type of chemistry with Amy Adams, and the way he talks with Clark Kent. I just really like that dialogue, and I know he's like a side character or like a lower level character, so we can't see more of him, but I just know when I saw him on the screen, I was like, okay, we're going to get a little bit of fun here.
I had no issue with his performance. I thought he did a good job in every movie that he was in. I didn't think there was enough of him, but I still liked him. Yeah, he was. I did not feel negatively about his performance at all. So that's a good one to bring up. I had not considered to even mention Lawrence Fishburne's Perry White. So that's good. Anyone else from this initial era? Scenes you thought worked, moments you think didn't?
I wanted to bring up the true hero of Suicide Squad, everyone's favorite character, Slipknot.
Yeah, Slipknot.
I'm like, I felt so bad. He didn't even get a thing in the montage.
That's why he knew he was going to die. The man who can climb anything. I'm like, oh boy.
And they kill him in the first, I want to say, 40 minutes of that movie.
Sure, I mean, after his introduction, as soon as they go to the city, he dies. So it was like,
he doesn't
Captain Boomerang tricks you.
He doesn't even have any lines, does he?
He has like one line when he's like, "Are you sure?"
Like
when Captain Boomerang is like, when he tells him like, "Oh, that whole bomb in the neck thing, that's not true." He's like, "You sure?" He's like, "Yeah," and that's when he fucking tries to escape and he blows up and dies.
Such a waste of Adam Beach.
Like, I think the Suicide Squad, if it taught us anything, that even these bad that they had no direction, and that like maybe actually under a good director they could do something good. Like, and I also agree that I thought Jai Courtney was good, and Jai Courtney's never good in any movie ever.
Yeah,
yes, that's what's crazy.
Earlier,
I think it's the Atson thing, one of the things, anyways.
Like,
you let him use his natural accent, and
Yeah, it's like your movie's fucked when Jai Courtney's one of the best parts.
Yeah, but it's very unusual. I'm trying to think of like anything else in this. Or did anyone else want to mention something else with between Man of Steel and the Justice Leagues that before we move on to the kind of like the middle one where they were trying to figure things out? I feel like
there is something I did like in Batman versus Superman.
Please.
I did like. I'm a Batfleck apologist because I think that Ben Affleck playing a weathered Batman who's fought war and crime and has failed was perfect. I just liked how they introduced him. How like he's been Batman for years. Things haven't been working out. If anything, things probably have gotten worse with him as Batman. And I liked how they introduced that. And then it gets dumb because somehow Lex Luthor manipulates one of the smartest detectives in the world to go after Superman.
Yes.
When you think it would be the other way around, where Luthor manipulates Superman after the vigilante Batman. I think that would make more sense. But no, it brings one of the smartest men in the world was easily manipulated. And it just because the idea is like, yeah, you have this weathered Batman who's pretty much has lost faith in being a hero. A Boy Scout who shows up and kind of puts, that was they could have set that for it, but of course, they kill him, Superman off, and then it becomes a muddled mess for the rest of the movies.
No, I don't even know how Lex Luthor knew that Batman was Bruce Wayne. I don't know if that was established in the director's cut. I have no idea. But I will say, I'm right there with you, Deadpool. I was not against Ben Affleck being cast as Batman. I know there was a lot of hubbub about that. People were mad. I feel like he could have made a great Batman. Oh yeah. It's just that it was in a different film by a different director and a different writer. What I've liked to have seen is an actual adaptation, The Dark Knight Returns. If they had done that, and I thought that would have been better. It would have made sense. He's a weathered Batman. He's been doing this for 20 or however many years, and he's disenfranchised, and he's angry, and he's aggressive, and he's killing people. That would have made sense for its own standalone thing, and I would be totally open for that had they done that. They just the choice that they made to have this is the Batman of this universe of this with all of these other characters. I was like, that is weird. We're seeing a Batman at the end of his career in this universe that we just started within the second movie. That's the thing that I cannot wrap my head around. I know that Zack Snyder jerks off to The Dark Knight Returns, but the fact that you would use that as a foundation, a basis for your entire universe boggles my mind. But I agree with you. I don't think he's a bad choice for a Batman.
I honestly believe I'm sorry, Vanny. I honestly believe that Ben Affleck's a better Bruce Wayne than a Batman.
Yes.
Sure.
Like the way he acts and the way he like portrays the character of Bruce Wayne is like one of my favorite parts of like Batman vs Superman and Justice League.
Yeah. Vanny, do you want to say something?
My kind of theory for this whole thing was like they wanted the grizzled Batman to be the contrast to a younger Superman, just so they can kind of create more of that separation for it. But I also think what they were going to try to do, again, this is them trying to have their cake and eat it too, is they wanted to also kind of already like kind of hint at some previous lore of, they showed the Robin costume that was completely destroyed. So I think they may have been trying to do like a Red Hood thing too, and kind of give the implication that there may have been some previous Robins. I think one of the reasons why they may want to have an older Batman like longer term is that way they can kill him off at some point or have him retire, and then either branch out into the Nightwing stuff, like if they want to bring over Teen Titans, like Robin or Nightwing into the fold as the new Batman, because there was the comic arc where that happened where Dick Grayson became Batman for a bit. Yeah. Or introducing Damian Wayne so they can have a younger Robin too and start building more into that stuff for it. Because especially you do see that in the Justice League films too, where they do start to give hints at the larger universe with like the Green Lantern Corps and stuff. And if they were going to branch out and do bigger things longer term for it, I could see where it makes sense to get rid of get that Batman out of the picture earlier.
Yeah, no, Chris Harris, can you?
I can mute him.
Yeah. There we go. I lost my train of thought. But no, that would have been interesting had they actually done something like that. It's like, okay, we're gonna get that Dick Grayson to take over the role of Batman. Like, okay, we're gonna do something radically different, which actually would have been interesting. Maybe that would probably ruffle a few feathers, but I wouldn't have mind seeing that because I actually like when Dick Grayson takes over the cape and cowl in the comics. I think that was one of the more interesting Batman stories. Or several stories that we gotten for quite some time, like Black Mirror and things like that. I always thought that was really cool. And Gates of Gotham. Yeah. That would have been interesting. Any other thoughts on this era before we move on kind of to the transitional period where they were just like, fuck, the original plan just didn't work out. What are we going to do now?
Viola Davis. Great. Amanda Waller.
Okay. Yeah, true. Oh, yeah. I think she, in that movie, I thought she's great. And glad to see her in both The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker.
More generalized thoughts per se. There are some ideas that were presented initially that I think were brilliant. It's just bad execution.
What were they? What do you think? What are you feeling?
I just meant generally speaking, there are some ideas that I thought were brilliant. It's just poor execution. That's all.
I thought you were going to bring up an example of what those ideas were.
I can.
Go ahead.
As you mentioned, Batman, I actually think the idea of an older, weathered Bruce Wayne was genius. They just didn't do enough with him to, justify it, if you will.
Sure. No, right there with you. Totally agree. Anyone else had thoughts? Yeah, Luke Buster, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to give just a quick run through because from the Man of Steel all the way to Justice League. Even Man of Steel when it first came out, I just wasn't that big of a fan of it, and I knew that it wasn't gonna be I wasn't holding this against or anything, but I just felt like it was gonna be off the entire time. Whenever they had that Jonathan Kent scene, I don't know why. I just felt it. I just felt because I love the opening. The opening is amazing. You get to see Krypton all fleshed out. It looks like a real alien planet. As opposed to I don't know, Antarctica or whatever, from the Christopher Reeves movie. And I was like, man, this is gonna be cool. But then once they started getting into that whole Clark's past and everything, and I saw that Jonathan Kent scene, I was like, dang, you're telling me that he would rather die, than have Clark save him, and potentially, even though Superman's faster than a speeding bullet, no one would have seen him. Because as being someone who watched Smallville, I was always like, yeah, Clark was always able to do this stuff because he was fast. He was, even though he didn't fly, he was fast. And the fact that they made it out he couldn't save him because everyone would see him, grab him, and it just never made sense to me. Also, and as far as something like Wonder Woman was my favorite film out of that, just because it was so well made, it was well shot, and I don't even think that. I know you said earlier, Chris, that the whole war, it happening in a World War I or World War II setting was ripping off Captain America. I don't feel that way just because it was, they came out their comics both started out that way, and they both came out at the same time. I think it was 1941. I was like, man, and that's what kind of was I don't know why Warner Brothers even felt that way, because I'm pretty sure that's why they changed the year, because originally she was supposed to be in World War II, just like Captain America, but I'm pretty sure they were like, oh, Captain America just came out, a few years ago, so we can't have her be the same thing. But it's like, man, who cares? Just have her in World War II, But overall, I would say Wonder Woman's probably the best film in there, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and as far as the Suicide Squad thing with because I know you brought up that Harley Quinn and the Joker's relationship, some people think it's wow, I want relationships like them. I blame that movie for that, because they just cut out all the scenes of any kind of violence that he inflicts on her. Because I know that they even had a scene early on, like they cut it from the film where she's, on that, she's chasing him down, and then she gets a hold of him, and they kind of put it in the director's cut, but they cut the part where he like smacks her across the face because she's all in his face, but and he smacks her originally, but they cut it out and it's on YouTube. But yeah, they just cut out all that stuff, and so it gave like new viewers impression like, oh yeah, he's kind of a jerk, but he's not so bad. She can change him and everything. So that's why whenever Birds of Prey comes around, and you're like, you hear all the stuff she's saying, like, oh yeah, he was such a jerk and blah blah blah, and that's why we broke up. And it's like, well, that's not the Joker I saw in that movie. That Joker was kind of like, you could tell he was kind of a jerk, but he like rescued her from that Amanda Waller. They were gonna go off, and I don't know, it was a mess.
It's inconsistent.
Yeah,
it's inconsistent within that movie. At least I feel like, or they sanitized it. They sanitized that relationship and how awful it is. It's like they didn't go. They did half measures every time when it came to that. Which is what bothered me. I wanted more of it because I think that's a very we don't really see that in comic book movies. We don't see that just toxic relationship between two characters and how one is trying to escape that. I think that would have been fascinating, but we didn't get that. We didn't get that. Moving on from that, and of course, everyone wants to bring up something in this next part. I do want to move over to the kind of transitional period, or the period where like, we know what the fuck we're doing, or they're panicking, and then it's a conflicting tones, and that period is, I would say, Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, and I would say Wonder Woman 84. That is, and I, just kind of to give my general thoughts on this era, I felt like, okay, they're kind of out with Zack Snyder at this point. We don't want to adhere to his just blue-gray aesthetic and where all of his characters are sociopaths. So we're gonna do something a little different. Let's just focus on these individual movies, and we'll take them by a film by film basis. And with Aquaman, where it's like, who would have thought Aquaman would be a higher grossing movie than Justice League in the world that we live in? It's fucking nuts to me. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this film. I think I'm in the minority with that. I love the color palette. It's bright and vibrant. I like Jason Momoa. The problem with that movie is that for me is that it's 4 fucking movies in one. They're trying to cover so many different Aquaman storylines. It's almost as if we only have one chance to do an Aquaman movie, so adapt 4 of his best stories that we have. And that's why I just feel like it's so bloated. It's so bloated. We have Ocean Master, we have Black Manta, we have Mera, we have the cannibalistic fish people, we have his mom, and I'm just like, guys, just pick one of these things and stop trying to have them all compete against each other. I think it's sloppy, but movie is well liked by a lot of people. Shazam, for me, is probably my favorite this era. That's where I thought, okay, you really embraced like what this character is of Billy Bastion becoming this character of Cat Marvel. They changed the name obviously to Shazam. It was very wholesome. It was about the family dynamic. I wanted more of that family. My one problem with that movie is like, I agree, Mark Strong. It's not that he gave a bad performance. He's not an interesting villain. There was just not enough there for him. But I do like Billy Bastion and his family and his chemistry with all the various other kids. I want more of that. Hopefully, I think we're going to get that in the sequel. So really love Shazam. Birds of Prey. I really like Birds of Prey too. I felt like, hey, let's really lean into the comedy. Let's focus on Harley Quinn's trauma and her trying to get out of that. I thought they had a great villain, which, at this point, DC was really struggling with the villains at this point. But I love Ewan McGregor's take on Black Mask. It's very different from the comics. He is, Roman Sionis in the comics is a psychopath, but he is a gangster. He's a mob boss. And here they kind of made him that, but they also made him very flamboyant. They changed sexuality. He's gay. And I thought that worked for the character. I liked that part of his personality. It was very interesting to me. Maybe you could say it was a little Joker-esque. He was more Joker in this movie than Jared Leto was, but I thought he was great. Plus, I love his fucking death scene. As he explodes from that grenade. I remember saw the theater, it shocked me and surprised me. So I really like Birds of Prey. I think, as people said, but it is 2 scripts combined, and they're constantly at war with each other. It's like, oh yeah, and the Birds of Prey are here, I guess. But it's more focused on Harley Quinn. Not to say that there weren't good performances in that movie, but it was a little shaky, but I liked it. And Wonder Woman 84, where I like the AIDS aesthetic. And yes, I think Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, they have great chemistry. The circumstances in which they bring him back is so fucking convoluted and weird and creepy that it just kind of makes me go a little disgusted. And Pedro Pascal, I feel like his whole plan and everything is ridiculous, but I like his character. I like what he was doing in the movie. I like his performance, if you will. But yeah, there's just a lot of they cut a lot of corners in that film, and obviously Kristen Wiig as Cheetah, I think, is thoroughly ridiculous. It was very much that Jim Carrey, very much that Guy Pearce kind of supervillain performance. I'm like, this is not working. But I did feel like this is their period where they're trying to find themselves, and I feel like, hey, I thought Shazam, I thought Birds of Prey, for the most part for me, worked. But anyone else? Is there like any scenes within this or films that you thought were very strong within this certain era of the DC film universe?
The one thing I can appreciate about Birds of Prey, I think, compared to the rest of the DC films, is that you had Harley Quinn as the unreliable narrator, so you're bouncing all over the place for it. And I have seen reviews that did critique that, where it just made it kind of like a mess. But it also is in line with Harley Quinn's sort of like manic sort of like behavior, where there's times where she's very composed and intellectual, other times where she's has like her darker moments, other times where she's just over the top silly and weird. So because she's so dynamic and so like complex, I love the fact that like she just will stop the story dead in its tracks, rewind, tell it from a different perspective for it, and then jump back into it. Like it created a lot of fun energy to it. And I wish like that's the kind of like theming of a film that I think could even separate it from the rest of like because this is their time when they want to like emulate the MCU, where they wanted to go with lighter color palettes. They wanted to go with I think like a less intense sort of storyline arcs with it. And I think you can still do that, but like you can tell it in a more unique or a fun way and still stand out. I think that's where Birds of Prey really, really succeeded. Besides, I think the overall very strong casting, and it is very, to your point, it is Harley Quinn plus the Birds of Prey. But when they're there, I think casting Rosie Perez in there too was brilliant casting for it. Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress was great too. I forget her name, but she was also Lovecraft Country too. Or
Journey Smollett.
She can do the scream. True?
What?
Journey Smollett?
For what's her name? She can where she can do the scream.
You mean Black Canary?
Black Canary, thank you. I just absolutely drew a blank on. I think again, all that was just absolutely fantastic casting for it, and just in a fun film overall for too. Like to your point, it's agreed there's some flaws with it, but like I do like what they were kind of going for it. And then they just to end that era with Wonder Woman 84, and for me that was like probably one of the worst movies I saw that year, if not the worst film, because just because the rules did not make sense for it. I thought the Cheetah like arc was nonsense. The rules of this universe did not make any sense, and there's so many like weird technical glitches too. Like there's one of the scenes where she's starting to lose her powers, and she's trying to hold on to a baby, and then she like falls onto the ground, and you can very clearly see it's a doll, and like nobody in post decided to fix that. Like it's one of the few, like there's like 3 films that I genuinely absolutely with 100% despise, and Wonder Woman 84 is on there because it just is such an absolute just mess of a film, and a waste of a lot of good talent there too. Like I very much could have seen Kristen Wiig being a solid addition for, because I think they could have gone the road like when Michael Keaton was first cast as Batman, everyone was like freaking out because he was a comedic actor, and then he nails it. Mm-hmm. Like Kristen Wiig does have some range. She does have her safe zone of like that bridesmaid sort of awkwardly weird kind of tone for it. But there she's done some quasi dramedies where she was very, very good. Like she did one with Bill Hader that I can't remember the name. I think it's the Skeleton Twins, where she was like praised for just playing a very different character. She could have done it. It's just in just the confines of this film was just terrible. Yeah, like it just, to me, it ended on like on the worst note possible. And Aquaman, like I hated what's her name, Amber Heard as Mara. I thought that was like some of the worst casting, and they had no chemistry with each other too. There's a very clear age difference, and now also knowing that Amber Heard is also just not a great person either too. On top of that, just all of it, just like she was a mess.
Fuck
we got
Amber
Dolph Lundgren. We got Dolph Lundgren though. That was cool.
Dolph Lundgren, he's in the movie. That's true.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on this kind of transitional period for the DC film universe from anyone else?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Austin, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was like, I thought about other people. Sorry. Okay. I actually haven't seen as many of these as I thought. I'm like, wow, I don't think I've seen, just because of timing of when they got released. Because they got like Shazam was in March, and 84 wasn't in Canada because of the whole. It was just HBO Max things, and I just never saw Aquaman because I really had no interest in it.
Sure.
But I've seen some parts of it. I kind of do, and something I wanted to say earlier, I kind of did wish we get a Ben Affleck Batman movie just to see what it was, just because it seemed like they set up maybe doing the Red Hood or something, and I don't know. I guess I would have liked to see what more of the rogues they could have pulled upon in a story, and I think it would have just been an interest just to get Batman by himself. I think it would have just been interesting. From some of these movies, the things I've liked in them, I really like that egg sandwich and Birds of Prey. That thing is that breakfast sandwich.
It looked good.
Delicious.
It looked good. That was a good scene.
I need to watch Shazam. That's it on my list. I really like who plays Ocean Master again. I always forget his name. Patrick Wilson, is that it?
Yeah, that's him.
The world's most normal looking man. But I think I mean I know he was Night Owl too, and I think he's really well cast in that. I don't know if he was the best pick as Ocean Master. I mean, he does that one line really great where he screams, "I am Ocean Master." Besides that, he just seemed generic. Like he was trying to basically be Loki, but not Loki.
I think it's just because I'm sorry.
No, you say your thing.
Well, no, I guess it's on the note of Patrick Wilson. James Wan and him, they like to work together for some reason, so it can't be helped.
That is true. That is true. And from what I always thought Kristen Wiig would never be a good Cheetah. I when I heard that casting, I'm like, no, it's just gonna be. I like remember I used to be in like a film tutorial. I'm like, I heard, I'm like, it's just gonna be Jim Carrey and Batman Forever, and I'm like, she's just. I don't see her. Cheetah's like a athletic like cat lady. I don't know. She's a weird villain for Wonder Woman, I think, but she has like a very physical prowess, and I just didn't think Kristen Wiig could really pull that off. And just kind of like a sort of menace, even of just like someone who's pretty much toe to toe with Wonder Woman, but they're like a person. And I don't really think it works off. But I do think a lot of these movies are improvements, and I at least appreciate the style they all have, and the costumes and designs they go for, because there actually is a lot more color and a lot more interesting looks in all of them.
Did anyone have any other thoughts on this specific era?
I'm gonna
the DC film universe.
Go
ahead, Chris Harris.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the noise earlier. My house is occupied by.
I think Chris Harris is still gone. I think that may have been Emily.
No, that was me. My house is occupied by a bunch of animals that don't know how to shut the fuck up. So yeah, I'm gonna be the one to go to bat for Aquaman. I love how just insanely stupid and over the top that movie is. Like, it embraces the silliness in a way that I wasn't expecting based off of how this whole universe started. And I appreciate that it had a specific tone in mind. Like, okay, we're going to be Indiana Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean adventure movie. And I like those kinds of movies. And it's a really big, loud, batshit version of those kinds of movies. And yeah, in terms of the plot, people always bring up, oh, it's like Black Panther all over again. But it's also got a lot of like the Raimi Spider-Man in there for me in terms of its tone and its style and the general approach, and Willem Dafoe's in both of them. And yeah, it almost feels like, honestly, James Wan's whole career feels kind of like, let me do a movie that Sam Raimi would have done back in the day, and let me just kind of do my own version of it. And I thought it worked for the character. And yeah, I was hoping that it would be good, but I never would have expected it to be as big of a hit as it was. Like, even I was caught off guard by that. And yeah, I think that was like the beginning of sort of like an ascension.
Did everything go mute?
Yeah, I think this was Aquaman was sort of the beginning of the ascension for DC, to where we could start like, okay, maybe there's something here. And then Shazam definitely like continued that. And I'm okay with Birds of Prey. I think it mostly just stems from the fact that until The Suicide Squad, I just never liked Harley Quinn as a character at all. She just grates on my nerves for whatever reason. But yeah, The Suicide Squad was the one where I was finally like, okay, I like this character now. So yeah, I think this whole era was them kind of like getting their feet back and like finding a way forward, and I think they managed to do that.
Any other thoughts on this particular era or certain scenes that stuck out to you as either bad or as great?
Anyone? Okay, I'll let you go.
Well, I was just going to say, as far as Birds of Prey, I liked, even though I was thrown a bit by the storytelling at first, I liked the way the characters all came together, because I went into this thinking, like, what is Birds of Prey referring to? I wasn't as familiar with those characters, and I liked the way they were all set up, with Harley introducing them, and I did warm up to her character over the course of the movie, because that was kind of my introduction to her. I wasn't sure if I'd like her so much at first, but Margot Robbie did a great job there. As far as Wonder Woman 84, I feel like Kristen Wiig could have done something with Cheetah in another life if they'd written it better or directed it better. She's a great actress. I don't know what went wrong there. I'm surprised I didn't hear about Shazam until just recently. I don't know if that one was as well promoted.
It was, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Lily.
All good? Okay, all
Go ahead.
clear. Yeah, I guess Shazam will be my topic of discussion afterwards. You're done, Casfade, but yeah, in terms of promotion, I have a thing to say about that as well. But Shazam, they surprisingly didn't promote it as much as they could have, because it was great. It has some little corny parts, but overall, it's pretty solid. That's it. Sorry. Continue.
I do feel like the movie it didn't have like the big blockbuster success of Aquaman, which made $1 billion. Like I think it barely made 300 million worldwide. So it definitely was one of those, I don't want to say forgotten DC films, but certainly didn't have as big an impact. But even though I liked it, probably the best of that era, funny enough. So I actually encourage people to check out Shazam, because I feel like it's very earnest and it really understood the character of Billy Bastion and Shazam. I really enjoyed that movie quite a bit. Anyone else want to bring up any other details about this era before we kind of wrap it up with what I think is the modern day era of the DC film universe?
I think one of the problems maybe with the Shazam thing was, I think they were, because at this point, people have heard of Jason Momoa, they've heard of Margot Robbie. Zachary Levi kind of fell out of the zeitgeist for quite a while. Like he had his show Chuck. He was a recast of one of the Warriors 3 in Thor, The Dark World, and Ragnarok, but and Tangle too. But as a voice actor then too, like I think nobody has ever actually seen him, and he's never led a film before too. So that's a risk for them too. So I think Warner Brothers was just saying, like, we don't know how this is going to play out. We don't know who this guy really is. Let's just see what happens with just like the bare minimum, versus like taking the, like I think they were just cutting their bets short just in case if it didn't turn out to be great, or if nobody wanted to go see the guy from Chuck now in a weird bodysuit.
Yeah, that's a good point. He was out of it for a while, and he's not exactly putting butts in seats, so it was weird. Whereas like someone like The Rock, who I thought would have made a great Shazam instead of like being cast as Black Adam, which is so weird to me. He would have. I could picture The Rock going, "Oh gee," and like, "Holy moly!" Like I can picture him doing that. And it's like, oh, that would have been huge. But not that Zachary Levi did a bad job. But you're right.
He did great. Perfect casting for it too. But. And he, to your point, he did that in Jumanji, like where he plays like this big dude who's also a kid.
Mm-hmm. I mean, which would have been kind of perfect to me. Aussie, you want to say something? I think Casvey, you also wanted to say something afterwards, but go ahead, Aussie.
Well, mine was just serious there. It was just a quick thing. Rock was originally, I think, in the DC thing was going to be, they were going to do a Lobo movie with him for a while.
Oh, that's right.
I think till Black Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Directed by the guy who did the one movie with the Journey 2 and the one movie with him and the building falling behind him.
San Andreas and Rampage?
Yeah. And Rampage. That guy was going to do it.
Oh, okay. Nice. Casvey, did you want to say something as well?
Just another quick thing about Birds of Prey. The action scenes really blew me away in that one. Like in the jail with the sprinklers and everything, or the parts where there's paint and glitter flying everywhere, things like that. I thought it was very artfully done. And every time I was watching one of those scenes, whether it was with Harley Quinn or somebody else, I just kept thinking, if this is a video game, I would play the shit out of it.
I like the scene when they're fighting in the police lockup area, and she inhales that cocaine.
Yeah,
I like the choreography for all that. I thought that was handled very well. I for the most part, I really enjoyed the action in Birds of Prey, and I also liked all the stuff they did with Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Huntress and her crossbow, and her issues with everyone. What was the thing? What was the running gag in that? They kept calling her like a name. It's like, that's not my name.
the
Crossbow
killer.
Killer.
The crossbow killer. That's right. I thought that was very amusing. But just wrapping up before we kind of go into the last era of the DC film universe. Anyone else want to mention something? A particular scene or sequence?
Okay. Sorry, Deadpool.
Go ahead, Deadpool.
Well, I do want to say one thing. Shazam did put together a superhero team better than the Justice League, and
Yep.
Yeah, it did.
Like the whole family actually worked and made sense and were entertaining to watch, and was their team the Justice League.
Yeah, I liked how they worked together, and there was wholesomeness between them, which I thought was missing with the Justice League. They even though they actually had very little screen time, like all of them together, it felt natural.
Yeah,
Funny enough.
the chemistry between everyone was great.
Agreed. Agreed.
Everyone talked. Teacher, can I? Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty adorable. Well, moving on from. I'm sorry, lady. Do you want to say something else?
No, I want to say a few things, but that's
Go ahead.
all.
No, go ahead. That's why this is open for everyone. What do you want to say?
So yeah, the thing is, quickly on Birds of Prey, I'm confused on what they wanted to do with that. Did they want Birds of Prey or Harley Quinn movie? It seems like they couldn't decide on which, so it's like, let's do a little bit of both. And yeah, it didn't exactly land on that angle, and also the title changing didn't help either.
Yeah,
And
I remember that. Yeah.
as far as Shazam goes, I have to give Zachary Levi a lot of credit for carrying that movie. He carried that thing hard because what surprised me was it showed the darkness of Billy Batson. Of his reality is very dark and very grim, while Zachary Levi was able to convincingly be the 15-year-old kid being very silly and very immature. It surprisingly worked together, even with the generic villain and CGI monsters and all that jazz.
No, agreed. Shazam is just one of those films within that in that era that I thought was pretty good, pretty stable.
So while unfortunately Zachary Levi doesn't exactly sell, they shouldn't recast him. He was brilliant in it.
I don't think they're recasting him anytime soon. I think he's very much that is his role. So I don't think that's going to happen.
He's a keeper.
Yeah, definitely. I think he did a great job. We're just saying that it's just like how the movie performed. Not the movie performed badly. It's just it was not the huge success like something like an Aquaman or what have you. Thought it would perform
Something
better.
about
Maybe
James
something
Wan.
like the Rock. Something like the Rock would have maybe brought in more people. But again, Zachary Levi did I think a fantastic job. And kind of moving on to the sure. And then kind of moving on to the the last era, which I think is kind of the modern era, which is where we are with the DC film universe, which is I call it the James Gunn era, where we had the Suicide Squad. And it's like, wow, for the first time, this just feels so thoroughly thought out, and where I like all these characters. And what's so interesting about them is that they're also scumbags, they're pieces of shit, and yet you made me care for them. I love that about the Suicide Squad. And as we go into Peacemaker, it's just nuts that I personally think the best DC film within this film franchise is the one that features mostly D-list and Z-list characters like Polka Dot Man and Peacemaker and Ratcatcher 2. Not even the original Ratcatcher 2. And then obviously go into the Peacemaker series, which I've been so thoroughly enjoying doing watch parties of. This I'm like, okay, now you really figured it out. I'm sad that it didn't perform very well, although again, came out in the middle of the pandemic, as we all know, and had that same day and date release of HBO Max. But kind of general thoughts on this new era, and just kind of wrapping up, and just kind of wrapping up of what do you want them to continue on, or as Deadpool pitched it earlier, do you just want them to stop and start over completely? I'm just opening up to everyone right now.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Luke.
Well, as far as just the last few movies, yeah, I mean, I don't see what's wrong with just continuing where they're going, because I'm pretty sure the Flash movie is going to reboot some stuff. But I mean, I wouldn't be mad at them keeping, like, of course they're probably they're recasting Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck, but I wouldn't mind them keeping, you know, some of the other characters that they already have into this new era of movies that they're coming. Because, like, yeah, like the Peacemaker stuff is great, and even though I don't think I like the Suicide Squad as much as you do, I like that movie. You know, like that's a good movie. So yeah, like going forward, yeah, I think a soft reboot is probably the best way to go. But if they want to just recast everyone, I mean, I guess, but I don't think they need to. And yeah, and did you also say what we want to see moving forward, or is that for another topic?
I think at this point I might say that for another topic, because this is I realized while we talked about this, not that's a bad thing, but it's very long, and so I think maybe in the future we could talk about what we want to see from the DC film universe, and maybe talk about also some of the cancel projects. And so we'll say that for another time. I think that'll be good. But yeah, just kind of as you said, just general feelings on this new era, or this kind of last part of this era so far, and just if you think it should continue on or not.
I think, yeah, definitely 100% think it should continue on. So
there we go. Anyone else? Go ahead, Thunderly. I believe you said it first.
Yeah. For me, like, I love the Suicide Squad movie. It's a shame that it didn't make big money. And just the fact that John Cena's like acting skills got way better as soon as that movie like came out, and you know he got his own show and stuff. But when it comes to the future, I like other people said, it's gonna be a movie by movie case. Like I have little expectations when it comes to the Flash movie. So yeah. But I'm better off watching the HBO Max shows than watching the movies, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyone else?
I'm the same way for it too. Like I don't think a hard reboot is necessary at this point, because again they still have strong actors for the most part for a lot of these films. Or you could still take maybe poor performances like the Jesse Eisenberg Lex Luthor and just tell him, like, kind of to what you mentioned earlier, like go full Mark Zuckerberg going forward. And you can redeem the character at that point. Or you can tell Jared Leto to just, you know, go be Morbius for the rest of his career and keep Joaquin Phoenix or something like that. It could still work with what they're doing. And at least what we're seeing with Suicide Squad, where they can embrace like the D-list villains. Like DC has such a huge catalog of really interesting and really fun characters to go with. Like they have not touched like the Green Lantern Corps proper yet. Like I would love to see the other corps. I would love to see Atrocitus and see the Star Sapphires, and even like introduce like the White Lanterns, or do Darkest Night and give us zombies. Larfleeze, yes, mine. You can absolutely still do that stuff with your current cast, and you could even start to incorporate or use like the TV shows as your bouncing board. Like, so bring, like, if you don't want to use Henry Cavill, if he wants to do Witcher for the next 6 years, fine, go get Tyler Heckler to go do stuff from time to time. Like, I'm sure he'll gladly do it, and he'll probably do it cheaper now too. And like make a Doom Patrol film, like maybe to wrap up the story arc for it too. Introduce like I said, I really want a Green Lantern Corps. Like give Constantine a show back again too, and then turn that into a film. Like you can do a lot with what they currently have without having to do a hard reboot or having to recast everybody. It could work. It could absolutely work. And I do have hope with the current like slate of films for it too. But it's like I mentioned at the start of this. It's the fat kid catching the football. If they catch it, great. That's awesome. If they don't, all right. Well, that's kind of what I expected. Like The Rock's made bad movies in the past too. He made that piece of shit Baywatch, and like, you know, Black Adam could be bad.
It could be. No, no, I agree with you, Vanny. I'm more on your I'm in your page. Like, I think all of us kind of feel this way. I'm not really because we were already almost 10 years into this thing right now. It's like, okay, you're gonna stop. You're gonna just stop at this point. I'll be like, all right, but we're gonna abandon all the rest of the stuff that is working. So let's take it film by film. But anyone else feel the same way? Anyone want to speak their mind on this last film and this TV show of Peacemaker? And do you think this should continue on or should stop in its tracks?
I think it should.
We'll go with Casve, then we'll go with Chris Ayres, and then we'll go with Ossinik.
I was going to say, I think it should continue because they've already shown a willingness to improve and a capability to improve with the Suicide Squad. Mm-hmm. And even with the Snyder Cut, if that movie may not be for everyone, but it was at least an improvement. So, like, True. I would just have way more respect for them if they just continue with what they're doing. And that's basically them owning up like, hey, I know this hasn't been working the whole time, but we're doing better. We're steadily moving forward. Whereas a hard reboot would just be exhausting. I wouldn't want to go into that again.
Yeah, do the origins and everything. That's a good point. Chris Ayres, you go ahead.
Yeah, I'm with Casve completely. In terms of like, just don't reboot. Like, I'm someone who's very much of the mindset of you made this bed, now you've got to fucking sleep in it. And thankfully, they've been tidying up the bed. Like, I think the Suicide Squad, and even though I haven't seen it, Peacemaker, I think are a great testament to what DC can do, which is like when you have someone who has a strong and unique vision that makes sense for the property that they're adapting, and you let them do what they do, and you get gold. And I think they've learned from the past not to just get people who know the material inside and out and can execute it, and don't like get antsy and fire them halfway through pre-production, like they kept constantly doing throughout that initial phase, to the point that there was actually a photo of like the initial slate of directors together at a Comic-Con. Like, I can't find the one I want, but I can find the original one here, where somebody took that and actually changed it to where everyone was like Thanos dusting away, except for Patty Jenkins and James Wan. Like, they're the only ones who have stuck around throughout the entire slate. And yeah, I think, find people who understand the material and can pull it off and translate it while still having their own voice. And yeah, on a film by film basis, if that means we keep getting good movies, then yeah, I don't think the continuity is going to have to be as big of a deal, as long as you can like tell a coherent story with each of these movies and just consistently deliver. And hopefully they keep doing that. Like, there's some stuff they're doing I'm interested in, others are like, it could go either way, but I've got my fingers crossed.
Ossinik,
I'm 100% with Vanny. Give us Green Lantern stuff. We have had not one good Green Lantern movie, and there's so much in I think the past like 10 years they've added to the lore that could make such a good movie. And your ideas were way better than anything they did with the Ryan Reynolds one.
Oh, thank you.
And like you said, I think even to the Suicide Squad point, I want to see more of Bloodsport and this version of King Shark and other things, just like how we're seeing Peacemaker in his own show. I mean, I think James Gunn said he's working on another show for DC, possibly. And I would love to see, and as well to that, if they do another Suicide Squad, or like the Suicide Squad 2, I guess, go crazy. Give me Condiment King. Go crazy here. Like, give me
Calendar Change.
Kite Man.
How about Calendar Change?
Calendar Man was in the movie. That was his brother.
There.
Yeah. But I also, and even with like Peacemaker, I want more of those like costumes, like how they're doing it. Like give us dumber it is, the better it is. Like just go crazy. Like try to like you got to outdo yourself now that you've done like King Shark and Polka Dot Man. Like that's how you, I think, keep doing it. You keep finding like you keep going either stuff they haven't really touched before, or like stuff like stuff that's just so stupid and we never thought we would see in live action that I want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see even weirder characters, especially in these Suicide Squad movies, and we can actually, the more ridiculous the better, and you actually make me care about them. Like, who would have thought we would care about Polka Dot Man and his various issues, and and be sad when he inevitably dies. I want to see that. That's why I like James. I don't know how long he's going to be of DC or Warner Brothers doing these films, but hey, longer the better. He seems to be killing it right now, and seems to be that side of DC film universe seems to be in a good place right now. That part of it seems to be in a good place, which I'm happy about.
James Wan doing superhero movies is better than James Wan doing horror movies, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If I may slide in quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Lily. Feel free.
Oh yeah, it'll be quick. It's just, I guess that's a general gripe with DC that I get that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman to an extent are very marketable. It's just that they are relying on a treasure chest of characters and stories that they just don't seem to want to do for live action, and sometimes it gets frustrating. Because
it's almost like they're scared.
Yeah, because what I want to see is Justice League Dark. Zatanna, good lord, I can't believe I'm forgetting what had a live action show.
Yeah, Justice League. That actually is something I wanted to bring up in the future. Where
Constantine,
Constantine and Deadman and a number of those other characters, Etrigan the Demon. That is, I want to save that for another show. Talk about the future of the DC film universe, because that is something that has been in some form of production for some time.
Thank you.
So we'll definitely get into that in the future.
I was gonna say that I'm kind of on the other side where I kind of hope that they just stick to. Obviously, they're not going to do it because they already said the Flash is going to be some form of a reboot. But I kind of want them to just stick to the singular heroes. Because I'm really excited because we saw the Joker, which was very successful, and I'm really excited for the Batman. I think it would just be a better idea just to stick with singular heroes and just deal with these heroes and just deal with these specific characters and their stories, and then they can still reference other characters, like we all know who Batman is, Superman, whatever. But yeah, I just think it's better that, for me, it would be better that way. And also they're gonna get into they're going to deal with the multiverse, and I know I'm the odd man out, or I'm in the minority where I'm very pessimistic about the multiverse. I think that's going to just make things very convoluted, and everyone's going to be like, what's this, what's that? So I would personally just prefer if they just stuck with the regular, just singular, like offshoots or one shot stories.
It's interesting because I know they've dealt with a lot of the multiverse stuff in the TV series, like the CW and everything. And I can't speak to the success of that. At least I've seen a little bit of it, like in Flash and things like that. And I know they did the DC Legends of Tomorrow, I think. But it's almost like another thing they're chasing. Like Marvel's recently delving into that with Spider-Man movies, and I think that, at least to great success, and you potentially see it with Doctor Strange. So I share your concern, Xavier. I don't think you're alone in that. I think there are a number of people who are just like, okay, I mean, it's cool to get Michael Keaton back and everything. But at the same time, it's like, this could get very messy. And it's already kind of messy already with the DC film universe. So I think that's a very valid concern. And I do not think you're alone in thinking that at all. Did anyone else not speak? Deadpool, Luke DeBoss, do you have any kind of wrap up thoughts in general for the current era of the DC film universe, and just in general? Should you think it should stop, or should you think it should continue on? Okay. No, I just wanted to check if you have any other additional thoughts. But that kind of wraps up this conversation, this Discord discourse. I definitely overestimated the amount we would talk about. It's like there's a lot of more details we can eventually go into in the future, and I think that'll be nice for a separate conversation, just talking about the planned projects and the canceled projects, which there are many. And we want to see in the future for the DC film universe. But I want to thank everyone for participating in this conversation. Thank you, Deadpool. Thank you, Osnick. I think Emily was here briefly. Thank you, Chris Ayers. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, Thunder Lee. Thank you, Kazfae and Xavier. I think Persimans was here earlier as well. Luke and Vanny. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see everyone next time. Let everyone in the comments let us know what your impressions are of the DC film universe. Very curious about that. But again, guys, thank you so much, and bye. 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 Hey, very good.